Good afternoon, financial professionals. Welcome to our third Thursday at 3. I am Shane Van Patten, Regional Vice President of E4 Insurance Services. Today I have a very special guest joining us. I call him the one and only Rod Crandall. Rod is also a RVP at E4, but in reality, Rod brings a lot more to the E4 team than just being an RVP. And by the end of this conversation, I promise you'll see why. So today, Rod and I are going to discuss the best practices for how to integrate long-term care planning conversations into your planning process. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping items. If you want to ask a question, please use the hand raise on the top toolbar, come off mute, or put your questions in the chat box. Today's webinar is more of a casual conversation than a presentation, so feel free to ask questions or provide comments along the way. Also, third Thursday at 3 will be recorded and posted to the Marketing Central section in your advisor portal on the E4 website. And this recording will be posted on our E4 YouTube page. With that, Rod, how you doing, bud?
Hey, Shane, doing great, man. Good to be here.
So, in preparing for our conversation, I started reflecting that you and I have known each other personally and professionally for about 20 years now.
Goes by
Can you
fast.
believe that? I know. I look at us on the screen right now, and I'm like, I guarantee we were a little less gray.
I had a little more hair for sure.
But here's the one thing. So picture us in 2005. You know, we'd first met each other. We were doing planning together, and I don't remember if it was you or if it was me, but we started talking. We got excited. We said, you know what? We're going to have so much fun over the next 20 years. We are going to help so many people, and we're going to go celebrate on a beach in Mexico. So my first question for you today is, where are we going in January of 2026?
Well, it turns out we're going to a beach in Mexico, buddy.
We're going to a beach in Mexico. So it's incredible that here's 20 years later, we're going to Mexico. It's going to be fun. But while we're on a recorded call, I do want to get, where are we going in the next 20 years of having fun and helping a whole lot of people?
Well, I think we decided based on our wife's feedback that has to be Hawaii.
Hawaii it is. So hopefully we have that captured. I see Dink Dutton up in the corner of my eye here smiling. So he enjoys that. When you heard a Dink, we're going there. Rod, I really appreciate you being on here. Like I said, this is truly a conversation. You and I have known each other for so many years. We're both extremely passionate when it comes to long-term care planning in different ways. But the one thing that I really like about you is your background, and more importantly is the conversations, the words that come out of your mouth when it comes to this type of planning. Kind of my idea for this conversation that we're going to have, or the agenda, I want to hear more about you, right? I know a lot about you. I want to showcase you a little bit to everybody else to hear about your background, how you came through things. But then I want to do is kind of together go through, kind of the areas of planning, and together we're going to build out, who's the ideal client, what you think the best entry point is in the conversation. And once we get into the conversation, what are we talking about, right? So we'll build out how to create a plan, how to fund a plan. When do we show insurance? I can't wait to ask you what you think about illustrations.
You know how I feel.
I know how you feel about it. And then obviously we'll talk a little bit about like the importance of medically pre-screening clients, stuff like that. So first question I want to ask you is, how did you get into the industry? How long have you been in the industry? How'd you get into insurance? Tell us about Rod Crandall a little bit.
Yeah, well, I got into insurance in September of 2000, so I guess that makes it 25 years now.
You had a 5-year head start on me. That's
5 years, yep. And I got recruited. I was being recruited for several years because I was managing one of the local restaurants in my town, and there was a Northwestern Mutual rep that was their financial advisor. And that rep had actually met with me, became a good mentor of mine. And even at 19 years old, he set me up with disability insurance and a money market account. And in talking with him, he thought that I'd be good for the business. He was recruiting me for 4 or 5 years, but I was too afraid to go independent effectively. Right. But he finally pulled me over in September of 2000. And then I spent 5 years with Northwestern Mutual. I did not do very well there. I think you know that, Shane. I sort of failed. I had tears down my face, a 500 credit score, 60,000 in debt. And I said, there's got to be a better way to do this business. And that's when I joined a financial planning firm where I connected with you. They wanted to hire me as a staff planner. But as I was in the interview process and I learned more about their firm, I realized they were doing little to no insurance planning. And so as I was being, we're going to need to mute that. As I was being offered that job, I actually said, Dave, respectfully, I wouldn't like to take that job, but I'd like you to create a position for me as an insurance specialist. And I'd like you to introduce me to your wealth advisors, and I'll help train them on how to do appropriate insurance planning. And so the last 20 years then, I've been able to work with over 200 wealth advisors and help over 2,000 clients obtain appropriate coverage in the life insurance space, long-term care space, disability, and hopefully I get another 20 more.
Sure. So today's conversation, long-term care. I'll again, this, but I'll share it to everybody else. I've been in the business 20 years. I have always offered life insurance, long-term care, disability, annuities. But the one area that I struggled with probably in the first 10 years is long-term care. Right? I joke that I probably couldn't spell LTC. And for me, Rod, this, and you were there supporting me from behind the scenes, but I had both of my parents in their 60s. They required long-term care events. They didn't have a plan. Even if they did have a plan, definitely wasn't funded. It was a Category 5 hurricane for our family. I kind of came out of that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's got to be a better way. And it's not just insurance. It's about having proper conversations, right? And sharing information with children and grandchildren and people that are important to you. So for me, I know exactly when long-term care started becoming extremely important to me in the planning process. Of your 25 years, when did long-term care really become?
Well, that's a really good question. I've always paid attention to it, but it's really been the last 5 years. And candidly, it's really been this year. It's kind of a weird thing to say, and I didn't know you were going to ask me that, but
that's why it was a fun, good question.
So what I'm seeing is that, first of all, I'm seeing a lot of people get declined for long-term care. And not just getting declined, but knowing ahead of applying that they're going to be declined. And so I had probably 12 people this year that would have given me $100,000 each if I could find any place to take their money, right? And that really motivated me for the first time. My wife and I put long-term care insurance in place this year. I just turned 48, and I bought it just before I turned 48 this year. And I got to tell you, I know I did share that with you, that was like irrationally exciting for me to put my plan in place, truly. And by the way, the plan I put in place for myself is better than any plan I've put in place for anyone else, because people are waiting too long to talk about this. And so and then, as you and I talk about the baby boomers that used to be turning 60, well, they're turning 80 and 85. And so many even of my friends or the people that I'm aware of are having personal experiences as well. And so it's to me, there's nothing more important than long-term care planning relative to insurance. Most of us are not going to die early or become disabled during our working life, but most of us are going to have a long-term care event. And so I'm very laser focused in that area right now. So I would say the last 5 years and specifically the last year.
Okay, no, that's good. You said well, I know this, but you said you partner with financial advisors. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
And then specifically, what's an ideal advisor for you to partner with and why?
Sure. So what I believe that I sell, my clients are wealth advisors, and what I sell is the intentional integration of insurance in a wealth advisor's practice. So if we think about that, that's intentional. What I find is a lot of wealth advisors didn't get insurance training, and they're not that comfortable talking about insurance. And if you're not comfortable talking about insurance, one of two things happen. Either you don't talk about it at all, or you just quote. And Shane, you know this, you didn't ever want to quote. You don't just want to quote because nobody wants to buy a product, right? And so what I've done, and I've been helped by you in figuring out how to deliver this, is that I really train advisors on sort of a three-step process. The first is identifying somebody that they need to talk to. Okay, so who do we need to talk to? And
Proactively.
then proactively, intentionally and proactively, we have to have conversations. So I'm like a conversation coach. So who do we need to talk to? And then position. So how are we going to position what we're talking about? Hey, you should buy some long-term care insurance. Give me $100,000. Well, that's not a very good way to position it. And so we need to be able to identify who to talk to. Then we need to be able to have an appropriate conversation or positioning with them. And then ultimately training those advisors then to introduce me as their partner, as somebody who can help lead that conversation. That's been my business model for 20 years. And again, I've been able to successfully do that with over 200 advisors. Now, when you think about who is the ideal advisor, excuse me, there's a couple of things to think about. I mean, first of all, I talk about the back of a business card, right? Now, many advisors are this way, but not all. I want people to be abundance minded, right? If you're going to do joint work with somebody, you're going to have to be abundance minded, right? You're going to want to have the desire inside your heart to be a fiduciary, whether you are legally a fiduciary or not, maintaining what's in the best interest of our clients at all times, right? I also want an advisor that's at least 5 years in the business. It's not that I don't want to work with young advisors, but the fact is they may not have as solid relationships. You need to have a strong relationship to be able to appropriately position insurance, in my opinion. And so I want people that are in business 5 years or longer. Ideally, they have a team. They don't require to have a team, but if they have a team, by definition, they're probably collaborative already. Right. And by the way, sometimes it's hard for an advisor to say, hey, there's an important planning topic, but I can't really help you with it. So I got to have this guy help you. Right? That can be awkward, and that's a bad position. Well, anyone who's built a team is more likely to say, hey, listen, we're better together, and we put together a dream team for you. And because of our team, we're going to be able to make sure that your goals come to fruition, whether you live a long time, whether you become disabled along the way, or maybe there's a premature death, right? So we want those advisors, high trust relationship. I want advisors that are literally putting together financial plans. It's been my experience that the reason people will buy insurance of any kind is because it's appropriate inside the plan. So what I do, and I've shared with you, is that I get brought in on what I consider to be the trust train. So the trust train is an existing relationship with an advisor that is a known entity in a high trust relationship, right? And if I have that trust train and we have the right context, okay, the context is the financial plan. So high trust plus context plus expertise then in the insurance planning to be able to conduct that kind of conversation. Now we get much better outcomes for our clients. So we're doing a much better job for clients. We're protecting their income, protecting their assets. We're protecting our advisors' AUM. And by the way, we can drive significant revenue in the commissions that are paid inside of insurance planning.
For sure. Again, I look at, I've shared a lot. I really had a light bulb idea one time when I started looking at, especially wealthy clients, right? Wealthy clients don't liquidate their high yielding investment assets first. They don't liquidate their business, their real estate. They use their low yielding liquid cash to pay for care first. So if we can actually build out a plan for you, using some of that low yielding liquid cash at the bank or credit union down the street that you're not even managing, and you're bringing new assets in that are actually creating that security blanket around the portfolio, and it's driving additional revenue for the firm. That's a win all the way around.
Absolutely.
Working with financial advisors, I see a lot of advisors that'll say, hey, my client's got $2 million. They can self-pay. I know from a client standpoint that this is a type of planning that most people don't want to talk about, right? You really talk about end-of-life planning or long-term care planning, it's a lot easier just to kind of push under the rug and not think about it. If you don't think about it, it might not happen. But knowing that, how do you motivate your joint advisors and their clients to actually engage in this type of planning?
Yeah. Well, that's the real trick, right?
That's what we're all here for.
That's the real trick.
What's the trick?
Well, at the very end of the day, we really have to ask ourselves, if we don't bring this to our clients, who is going to? right? So our clients trust us, especially the wealth advisors, very high. And if the wealth advisor doesn't bring it up, who's going to? And so the motivation is really, again, understanding that it is the right thing to do. And then even selfishly, it's protecting the AUM, right? I have had, as you know, multiple individuals say, hey, my client's going to self-pay. And my response to that is I don't mind that, and you can self-pay. But what I get concerned about is a couple of things. Number one, what happens when I have to take, in your words, a $10,000 gym membership shows up? It's a monthly cash flow issue. I've got to grab another 10,000. Where am I grabbing that from? I might be grabbing it from my IRA.
It's on top of everything else, all your other retirement lifestyle expenses.
That's exactly right. And so now, did I jump up in tax brackets when that happened? What happens if it's a down market? Okay. Those are the things that concern me. Plus, listen, paying for your care out of pocket is the least effective way to do it, even if you have all the money in the world, right? Insurance, by definition, gives you huge leverage, right? If we knew that your client that has $5 million would have a long-term care event, if we knew for sure, do you think we would buy insurance?
Absolutely.
Because the answer is, of course we would, right? And so what it's about is consideration. See, that's what happens is we don't get consideration. We don't want to talk to the insurance person. We don't want to be sold something. We don't want to be the insurance person. We don't want to ask somebody about their health. We don't want to ask somebody how much they weigh. So we ignore it. By ignoring it, by ignoring it, we don't have consideration. If we have consideration, then we have permission to educate on what our options are. And if we educate on what our options are, it becomes pretty clear that, you know what, maybe I ought to offload some of the risk to an insurance company, right? Let's not forget what long-term care really is, in my opinion, is not even long-term care. Now, we have to be careful about compliance. Clearly, it's long-term care, but not functionally, okay? If you get sick, you're going to get care. And if you get care, it's going to cost something. And if it costs something, you're going to be paying for it. If you're going to pay for it, you might actually pay higher than what you need to because you might have to recognize taxation. It's not about that. What long-term care insurance is about is it's protecting the healthy spouse, right? It's allowing the healthy spouse to maybe coordinate that care instead of provide that care. It's providing a permission slip to get the care. I've been in a lot of client review meetings, and I know many of the advisors on the call are going to recognize this. You sit with your client and you might even beg them to spend some money. Your car's 20 years old. Go buy a new car. What are you doing? Go on vacation. Well, the person who has $3 million, $5 million, do you think that they're going to be jumping up for joy to go get the care that they need when the $10,000 monthly gym membership shows up, which, by the way, is going to be $20,000 or $30,000 in the future?
Yep.
Yeah. And so it gives the permission slip, and effectively what I call long-term care insurance is retirement portfolio protection. Because the question is, what is the effect of the double dipping event that's going to occur when a long-term care event happens? And the healthy spouse is going to be the one that's going to have that sort of burden emotionally and mathematically. Right?
So I'm going to ask a question again because you didn't really answer it.
I was ignoring it.
No, but I loved it. And before I forget, I'm going to even add to it. So I'm going to put a cherry on it. But the other thing I get a lot of time is, no, my client has enough money to buy it. And it's like, well, that's not the right question. Mm-hmm. You know, does your client have enough money to pay for long-term care? If that's the question, your client has $1 million. Yeah, they probably have enough money to pay for long-term care. But that's not the question. The question should be, do you have enough money to pay for long-term care and maintain your family's lifestyle, right? All the things you said, protect the spouse and children physically, protect the family financially. That's a question, right? So I use the Lamborghini all the time. I'm like, yeah, I know your client has $2 million. They could go buy a brand new Lamborghini today, but they don't. Why is that? Right? Because it's going to affect the family's lifestyle after that purchase. That's a long-term care event. They have enough money to do it, but they can't do both without running the numbers. How do you get the advisors and the clients, though, who, again, they think they have enough money to self-pay, and the clients really don't want to talk about it? How do you get them to? How do you motivate them to go through? Yeah,
so we're talking about the math. The question you had was about the math, and that's correct. But we have to touch the heart before we touch the mind. Okay.
Love
And
that.
so you might have enough money to do that. The questions then, the two best questions are, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about seeing 10, 20, or $30,000 come from your portfolio?
As an
Right?
additional expense on top of
Correct.
everything
By the
else.
way, what does that really mean? That's that much less for your heirs. How do you feel about that? By the way, we need to ask about personal experiences and share personal experiences. Because if it's just about the math, which is my point about quoting, if you just quote, it's just about math. The math looks terrible. I don't want any of it. And if I want any of it, I want the lowest number on the page. That's what quoting is. Okay? We don't quote. We ask them how they feel about it. When we ask about personal experiences, the situation changes completely. And so there's an emotional component and a math component, and you must address both. And so I think that's what you're looking for, is that if you're ignoring the how do you feel about it, and if you ever seen this happen and what was that like, the likelihood of success goes way down. Okay, it's because of denial as well, right? As you know, I lost my mom 7 years ago. We don't have time for that story, but the part I want to pull out of that story is that my mom accidentally drowned, and before she accidentally drowned, I was somehow in denial that I could die or become disabled. And I'm in this business. Now I bought disability insurance and I had life insurance in place, but I walked around and there was no way that that was going to happen to me until she died. And then the moment that she died, I was sure I was going to die immediately.
You
And
had a
I'm not
will, you had a power of attorney, a healthcare directive.
I
Yeah,
am not
you went
even
through everything.
exaggerating. I was so afraid. That was emotion. That wasn't logic. And so anybody who's had an experience was probably jolted in some kind of way, and we can sort of set the stage for a meaningful conversation instead of just ignoring it. And so many people, Shane, are ignoring the dirty word called insurance.
For
Whether it's an
sure.
insurance agent or an insurance policy, people think it's dirty, and I understand why, and we're ignoring it completely.
So one thing I'm just going to add to it, because I've had at least success in getting advisors to look at it differently, is for both clients and financial professionals, sometimes we fall into this that we're going to be active, engaged, and healthy in retirement, and then the next day just be dead. And from a math standpoint, that actually works out really, really good for the plan, right? But it doesn't happen to a lot of families. And I think of that, I say, how many of your clients do you know that were active, engaged, and healthy, and literally the next day just died, right? Even with the long-term care event, it's in stages,
Mm-hmm.
right? It starts off simple stuff and it kind of progresses from there. But it's even during the simple stuff, that's when it is important that we want to protect the spouse, we want to protect the children, we want to protect the financial plan. So I think that's a good kind of pivot into really where we want to go today. And it's how to have that conversation. And I think before we even get into that conversation, to your point, Rod, we really have to identify who do we need to talk to. So,
Yep.
while we're here and we got people on the line, let's think of what we would identify as the ideal client
Mm-hmm.
profile. Again, we
Sure.
haven't had this conversation, so I
Yep.
mean, this is just us going
Sure.
off the cuff here a little
Well, I
bit.
mean, first and foremost, the client has to have some income or some assets or a combination of, for really two reasons. Number one, they have to be able to afford a premium, right, at
Right?
the end of the day. But secondly, they need to have something to be able to protect. So what that means is you want people that are fully on track for retirement, either approaching retirement or already in retirement. Now, clearly, the earlier that you can address this, the better. Okay, I'm starting to really be focused on addressing this for people that are 40 and 50 years old because I've looked at what it looked like to me. Now, a lot of people can't do that. But the best time, in my opinion, are the people that are empty nesting, that are on track for retirement. Let's say that's 55 years old. You're on track for retirement. You're looking to retire in 10 years. We're in the green so long as we live. We're in our highest wage earning years. Our debt is the lowest that it's ever been. We probably got some of our budget back because we're done paying for kids' college and feeding them so much. And we're very serious at that time about the finish line called retirement. So the best opportunity, in my opinion, is really 55 years old, ideally, but the earlier, the better.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I also, at 43 years old, purchased my first long-term care plan, and it was kind of the same thing. I maybe being in the industry, but it was one of the I mean, I've had everything else planned up. The only thing that hasn't been addressed or buttoned up was the long-term care planning.
Yeah.
And it feels really good. So again, 55 is a great spot, but don't worry about looking earlier in ages, because there are people that are planners that, this is very important to them. I think part of that ideal client is definitely going to be people that have personal experience. Right? I truly believe, Rod, if you had personal experience, my first question to you is going to be like, hey, tell me about it.
Yep.
Right? And you're going to tell me a story that probably wasn't really great, at least based on my experience. Most of them are category 4, category 5 hurricane events that happen to the family. And so within 5-10 minutes of hearing this story, my follow-up question is always, Rod, how do you want your plan to be any different?
Yep. It's a beautiful question.
Right. And the things I hear is, I don't want to be in that nursing home that my father was in. I don't want my mother to physically care for me, or I don't want my wife to physically care for me like my mother did for my father. Right. I want to make sure my wife can maintain lifestyle. My mother gave up everything to be able to care for him.
Yep.
Again, in that period of time, we've kind of built out a plan of care. So great question. If you got people that have personal experience, they get this.
Yeah. Well, what you're describing really is that we have to find their why, right? I didn't come up with that, Simon. We need to find their why before you put quotes in front of them.
For sure.
Before. And the why is not about math generally. Okay. It can be, hey, it's really important that I leave a certain amount of money to charity or my family. It can be, but my experience is the why is usually not mathematical. It's emotional. It's what you said. I don't want to be a burden to my children, right? It's something like that, And so you have to be able to elicit that. And if you just go into the dollars and the cents, you can't ever get there. And that's why we have to focus on the heart first. We have to touch the heart before we touch the mind.
That's fantastic. All right, so we identify this individual. How are you recommending that kind of entry point into the conversation? One, when's a good time to do it? And two, what would you actually say, right? If I have somebody, I'm like, Rod, I'm not comfortable bringing up this conversation. I think it's very important because I know their family members have had stuff. What would you be recommending is the ideal time to have the conversation, and what would you be saying to get into that conversation?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the ideal time to have the conversation is in the client reviews. So I've been in many client review meetings, and most client review meetings that I've seen are scheduled for an hour. 45 minutes is talking about the family and the vacation that they went to and how fun everything is. And that's beautiful. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. And then the last 15 minutes is, here's your performance. See you in a quarter, or see you next year. So there's time in there. Okay. In the client review, I believe, is the best place to do this. And I think the best way to approach it starts with congratulations, right? You see, if somebody's going to do long-term care planning and they're appropriate for it, it's because they're already on track for their other goals, right? One of the main reasons why I bought long-term care this year when I don't have any kids is that I started thinking, you know what? There's really only one thing that's going to ruin me and my wife's life. And that's one of us needing long-term care, getting sick for a prolonged period of time. Absent that, I mean, is it likely that the market's just going to bottom out and all my money's going to go away? I'm knocking on wood. That's not very likely.
But it is important to note that at 48 years old, you also had adequate amount of life insurance,
of course,
and adequate amount of disability insurance, correct?
I'm already made it there, which is the point where it starts with congratulations. So congrats, you're all in the green. You're doing financial plan. We want to be in the green. Congratulations. We need to probably have some sort of conversation about what could possibly break this financial plan. What could go wrong, right? Let me ask you, Shane, have you ever seen anybody need a long-term care in any form or fashion? What might that have been like, right? So whatever the language is, what you're indicating is, great job. Like, let's make sure that this doesn't break. Are you open? See, a lot of it is also just soft language. Would you like to consider talking about this? Would you be open to exploring options? Right? And saying what to say is probably as important, but maybe not as important as what not to say. Hey, you need long-term care insurance and we need to talk about it. No. Oh, you know what? Your plan could really just be decimated immediately and you could be in trouble. No, I mean, it's not a scare tactic. It's like, congratulations. And by the way, when I was at Northwestern Mutual, the first thing they told me, very first thing, we put together financial plans that come to fruition whether somebody lives, dies, or becomes disabled. I think there's maybe a more eloquent way to say that, but is that not the business that we're in?
It is. Well, and you look at disability. I mean, while you're working, that's an occupational disability, and I'd go as far as saying a long-term care event is a functional disability.
Well, there you go.
I mean, that fits in. I like that. I like that a lot.
We made it up the mountain. Let's make sure we can make it down the mountain.
For sure. And I'm pretty similar. You know, when I look at it, it's when you got things buttoned up, what in retirement could create such a monthly cash flow issue that could have ruined the whole plan? And outside a long-term care event, I mean, it really doesn't exist. So it's, you know, what is the plan? And we got to create a plan. So that's where we get a client that says they want to go through and do some planning. Mm-hmm. We need to create a plan. What would you look at from creating a plan? Or do you want me to take this one?
Well, why don't you take the front end of the plan and then let me take the back end of how insurance could potentially fund the plan.
Perfect. So and this is the best part, and this is where I honestly have had a lot of advisors almost have like a sigh of relief that when it comes to long-term care planning, that it's not just leading with an illustration, right? They're not comfortable just saying, hey, here's a long-term care quote. What do you think? It's taking that step back and saying, hey, I didn't bring an illustration. I don't have illustration software with me, nothing. I want to have a conversation. We need to create a long-term care plan. And what that plan could look like is we need to have, you did a presentation once, we need answers, you know, to think. We don't need insurance, we need answers. Well, when it comes to planning, we need answers. Hey, you know, you may never need care, but if you do, where do you want to receive it? Mm-hmm. Right? Do you want to receive it in your house? Do you want to receive it in an assisted living facility, nursing home? So where do you want to receive care? Extremely important is who do you want to have physically provide that care? And I promise you that if there's no plan in place, that spouse and the children, no matter where they live, will put everything on pause. And even if they physically can't do it, they will try their hardest until they can't do it anymore. So we got to have a plan. Where do you want to receive care? Who do you want to have physically provide it? Who do you want to have coordinate it? And then most importantly, how do we want to pay for it? Now, again, going back to the kind of role play that I did with Rod, you know, he tells me this terrible experience. Doesn't want to be in the nursing home that his dad was in. He doesn't want his mother to physically care for, doesn't want his wife to physically care for him like his mother did, or his father. Wants to make sure his wife can maintain lifestyle. What I hear there is we want to create a plan that keeps you safe in the comfort of your own home. By doing that, we want to make sure that we protect your spouse and children physically, right? Let them supervise or manage your care, not roll up their sleeves and physically provide the care. And then by doing all of that, we got to make sure that we can maintain the family's lifestyle, right? Protect all previous financial commitments and maintain that lifestyle. That's the plan that almost everybody chooses. The problem is most people can't pay for that plan at 100%, and that's okay. But once we get that plan created, now we have to start talking about how we're going to fund the plan. Did you want to pick up there? Or you want me to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, up to you. If you feel good, I mean, I got good stuff on my side.
Yeah,
we're very close, obviously.
We really are. How about I'll just set it up? I mean, we have the plan, which almost everybody chooses: stay at home, protect spouse and children physically, protect the lifestyle financially. We got Medicare, Medicaid, self-pay, private pay, whatever you want to call it, and long-term care insurance. Okay. Rod, you got a client that comes in, they want to stay at home, they want to protect their spouse and children, and they want to maintain their family's lifestyle. Okay. They realize Medicare isn't for them. They realize Medicaid is not for them. They are what you deem those planners. They're on track. They're healthy and what we deemed wealthy, you know, for whatever our perception is of that. Okay. Go.
Good. So then what I say is, now that we have that plan, I want you to know that you don't need insurance specifically to fund that plan. Okay. And there is a multiple options, and they can be confusing in the sense that if you went out and got quotes, you could get quotes up to your eyeballs and you'd see sift through and you'd just be very confused. But if you really think about it, you only have two options relative to how to pay for that care. You can either pay for it from your own portfolio and your income, and you can effectively cross your fingers. Or you can,
or your spouse and children's health. That's a cost.
That's true. That's true. It's fair. Or you can transfer some of your dollars in some form or fashion to transfer some of your risk. And so in so doing, there's really three different types of policies or designs by which you could transfer some of that risk. The first would be a traditional long-term care policy that I call a use it or lose it, pay as you go plan. Right? Second would be utilizing a life insurance with a long-term care rider attached. And then thirdly would be an annuity with a long-term care rider attached. There's certainly pros and cons to all of those three, right? And so to the extent, and by the way, this is ultimately how I end up ending my initial appointments, is, would you like me to go to the market and pull together some options for you in those different areas so that you can become better educated about what your options really are so that you can make a good decision on how you might want to fund the plan.
So Rod, would you bring 3 separate illustrations then? One for traditional long-term care, one for hybrid LTC, and one for annuity plus LTC?
Well, potentially. It would depend big picture what they might have gravitated towards. What I find is that a lot of people don't want to consider the traditional long-term care model, primarily because of the future increases in costs that can occur, the use it or lose it aspect. But yeah, to the extent that all three were maybe appropriate, then yes, I would come with 3 illustrations, but as you know, I wouldn't be presenting 3 illustrations.
That's what I want to know. What do you think about illustrations, Rod?
I think they're for attorneys. They're not for clients. I think you must maintain compliance and you must show illustrations, and I do. But do not lead with illustrations, ever. Ever, 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 ever. They are too confusing and people do not understand them. Half the time, with respect, advisors don't understand them. And 10% of the time, I don't understand them. Okay? They're important, they're required, they're needed for compliance, but you don't lead with them. I believe you lead with an executive summary. I know you know that I do this, Shane. I'll take those 3 illustrations with, by the way, might be 6 illustrations because we're comparing companies, but I'm already shrinking it down to what I call the best in breed. I've brought to you the best in each category. I put together a 1-page snapshot, walk them through on an executive summary basis. You walk them through on an executive summary basis. What happens after that is they know enough on the executive summary without seeing the illustration. They know 1 or 2 of these options they do not like. I ask them specifically to eliminate the one that they don't like. See, people have a hard time telling you directly what they want to do, but they don't have a hard time telling you what they don't want to do. So I want them to feel empowered and I want them to say no. By the way, when they say no, guess what? I don't have to show that illustration. If I show that illustration, I'm going to confuse them. If you confuse, you lose. So now I'm down to 2 illustrations, right? Now at that point, maybe I'm showing them and going a little bit deeper, depending on where they are or what their comments are or their concerns at that time. And then the process of elimination gets them there because it's compared to what? I tell my wife that I'm in the compared to what business. Okay. I don't believe people like insurance and they don't want to buy it. And you know what? I don't really like insurance and I don't want to buy it, but I did. I bought a lot of it, a lot of different kinds. Why? Because of the compared to what? What are my options if I don't have it? By the way, we know people buy insurance generally because they love someone or something, or maybe they owe someone something, right? And that's that heart component, right? I bought my insurance because I love my wife and because I love myself, right? The long-term care is somewhat of a selfish, just like disability in a certain way, right? I want to make sure that I can maintain my lifestyle. So I love my wife and I love myself, and that's really why I bought it. But I'm smart and I'm a math guy. So I wanted to have really great math too. And I think that's our clients too. So we have to be able to get a yes emotionally, and we have to be able to get a yes mathematically.
Oh, that's fantastic. So last question. is, the importance, we've talked about this, of medically pre-screening clients, right? Where in the process of everything we just talked about, after they choose a product, would you say yes? Would you've already gathered that information?
Oh, that one hurts me a little, Shane.
I know.
It hurts me. I think if you talk to most long-term care specialists, they'll tell you got to start with health up front. And on its face, in a vacuum, I agree with that, because
maybe those 3 products aren't all available.
The options are going to be, but leading with health, it doesn't feel good, and you got to gain almost the trust and the permission to do it. So I don't ask about health until I've presented that executive summary. We've asked them to eliminate. And then what I say is, well, as I've indicated, these are things that you have to qualify for, right? And what I like to ask is, are you as healthy as you look? And I start there. Now, what I'll tell you is, I'm not really happy.
I think you've asked me that before.
Yeah, I probably have, right?
Yeah. Are you trying to sell me something?
It's just kind of a soft way, Is there anything going on with you that you think an insurance company may be concerned with? People go, I'm good. No. The real money question, I think, is, are you on any prescriptions?
Medications, yeah.
Yeah, because that's gonna uncover most of it. Now, what I'll tell you is, I love our clients, but in general, I think they hold back, and sometimes they're not as honest as they could be relative to health. They don't want to be weighed and measured, and I understand that. And so that's one of the trickier parts, right, in being able to ask that. And so I try to encourage them to say, listen, I want to remind you that we're independent and we're brokers. And the last thing that a person should do is just go into underwriting and see what happens. We have an underwriter on staff, and we have a process that we can go through on a preliminary basis and on a confidential basis, so that we can understand better about what companies might accept you and how much they might charge you. So what I would ask of you is, please be as forthright with me as you can, so that I can effectively get you into the right spot. I tell them that really my job is twofold. Number one is really what's happening today, learning more about you, helping educate you on how to think about this stuff, right? That's sort of the first part of my job. The second part of my job is to turn around into the marketplace and play matchmaker. And that's my comment about pulling in together the best in breed in the different categories. Right? Sure. So with your help then, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'll be able to shortcut that for you dramatically. Right?
Yeah, and my process is pretty similar. I probably start with a pre-screen quicker or earlier in the process, but I can definitely see, I understand where you're bringing it as well. But I've just found, I tell people usually I need 2 silos of information. I need to know everything about you as an individual and your finances, and I need to know everything about your health. And between those 2 things, right, we have so many products in the industry right now, right? We don't have a product issue in the industry.
Right.
We have a planning issue.
Correct.
But we have all these products, and some of them are much easier to qualify for, and some of them are extremely hard. So if I have an idea of what your source of funds might be available, do you have excess? Do you have surplus qualified assets? Do you have an existing non-qualified annuity? Do you have really good income for the next 10 years? What does your health look like? Usually I can match make through that and say, okay, the whole menu's available, or really you're looking at page 4 of the menu and you're looking at these 3 items that are available, right? That's about all you're going to be able to medically qualify to consider for insurance. The one thing we didn't talk about, we mentioned insurance is probably mathematically the most viable solution if you need care. Mm-hmm. But you got to just keep in mind that we're talking not only leverage, but the benefits are paid out tax-free, and we have predictability on most plans. We know exactly what the ending value is today. So when we're planning for something in 20 to 30 years from now, and we know what the value is today, is that predictability important in the planning process? And I would say absolutely. So
I agree.
Rod, I know we only got a couple minutes left here, but I didn't tell you about this, but we have Jesse, our marketing extraordinaire and executive producer, is going to come on at one of our Building Business Together events that we held. She went around and asked advisors for questions they would have about long-term care. So I got this idea because I hear people calling into radio shows, and I'm always like, wow, those hosts have to just answer this question off the fly. I don't even know what these questions are either. So
Great.
Jesse's got a couple questions that she's going to ask, and
let's do it.
I'll help you. So we'll see if together we can answer them.
Okay.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
You guys actually answered a few of the questions during your conversation, which was really good. So kind of scrapped those. But the first one is, how do I help clients get over the "it won't happen to me" mindset?
Yep. Rod, you should bring up your which mistake would you rather make?
Yeah, I mean that's the answer. I mean, first of all, you have to validate someone. You know what? It may not happen. And by the way, if I had a crystal ball and we knew that you weren't going to need care, I mean, we could stop this conversation immediately. But if we had the crystal ball and we knew that you would need care, I might as well pull out applications right now. What I would actually ask you with respect is, which mistake would you rather make? Would you rather put something in force and then not need it? Or would you rather not put something in force and then need it? See, long-term care planning is a really funky planning because in order to buy insurance, we have to effectively bet against ourselves in a certain way. And then we hope that we don't win.
Yeah.
And then if we don't win, and then they keep our money in a traditional plan. That's a lot of why I like the annuity and the life insurance combo plans, because we get what I call cost recovery. And so to the extent that we bet against ourselves and we didn't win, the insurance company didn't keep our dollars. We recovered all of our costs.
That's a good answer. I agree with Rod.
Done.
Perfect.
Yeah, what do you add to that?
Yeah. The second question we have on here is, are there some business owner specific opportunities?
Shane, you take that one.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is. Boy, this could turn into a whole nother conversation. I think maybe if, we did a brew yesterday that should be out on the E4 that talks about this in general. But yes, the fact is, if it depends on if it's a pass-through entity or if it's a C corporation, but there are tax deductions for all forms of business owners and definitely key employees. It's just going to be different considering whether it's a C corporation. It's going to have more favorable tax deductions as opposed to a pass-through entity. Outside of deductions looking, I think employers need to be, if you're a financial advisor working with business owners, I think you need to be educating the employers about the potential loss of workers. That's what's more concerning to me. As we've said this month a lot is, again, how many boomers are going to be turning age 80 every day starting in 2026? Who's caring for those people when they don't have a plan and that plan's not funded? It is going to be adult children. It might be grandchildren. Why? Because if they love their parent or grandparent, they're going to help. They're putting not only their family on pause, their friends on pause, but they're putting their work life on pause. So I think we're going to have just this huge wave of issues. And I think employers need to be aware that you may have some employees that are going to be taking a lot of time off. And what does that do to the business? So should we be doing some education? Could an employer offer some sort of long-term care type planning? So there's a lot of stuff. I'll leave it at that. Again, I could talk for an hour probably on it. But Jesse knows it too.
Yep, I do.
Yep.
It's like wrap it up, Bucks, right? From the Oscars or something.
Last two. One is, are shared or joint benefits worth considering for couples?
Absolutely. My wife and I did a shared policy together. My average policy is probably 4 years for a husband and a wife on two separate policies. Well, we get 8 years together. The thing that concerns me is a cognitive impairment. One of us can use all 8 if we need to. And so what I would say is that the big difference between a single policy and a joint policy, in my opinion, is what I call first death liquidity. Okay, and so the likelihood of two people, a husband and wife, dying on the same day is very low, which means somebody will predecease the other, which means that person is going to be injected maybe with that death benefit. And so that's the big question mark, in my opinion, is is there a need for first death liquidity? And yeah, you should consider joint policies, in my opinion. Shane, anything?
I would just say it a little bit differently, and it's very close. But I look at long-term care as a first need care issue. Right, the first spouse who needs care is going to get the care. Always happens. It's happened every day. It's happening right now to somebody. It's how do we protect that healthy spouse and children physically and financially, right? So when we don't know, we don't have that crystal ball that Rod alluded to tell me which spouse it's going to happen to first. Having that in Rod's scenario, 8 years that one of us, both of us, we can use up. We know that the first that needs care is going to get it, and we're going to be able to protect that healthy spouse physically and financially for up to even the full 8 years. And at that point, if it's exhausted, was it worth it? Absolutely. Right? You just basically save somebody 8 years financially and physically, allow them to reinvest, to invest more aggressively, things like that. So I'm a big fan of joint, if possible.
Sounds good. The last question is, are there options that exist for clients who are already older and might be in less than ideal health already?
Shane, you take this one.
I was going to make a joke and be like, you mean like Rod? But I mean,
you're just basing that on just seeing from my eyebrows up.
Well, I mean, look at me.
We have the same barber up.
We have the same barber. Yes. I mean, really the last hurrah, when you got somebody who's 70 or older, right, just from a leverage standpoint and from an insurability standpoint, is we have a lot of fixed annuities with LTC riders. And these are true 7702B LTC riders. They look and feel just like traditional long-term care in the form of it's comprehensive. It covers care in home health care, adult daycare, assisted living, nursing home, hospice. We have a company that just rolled one out that has cash indemnity benefits, but I look at these and it accepts non-qualified dollars either as cash or existing annuities via 1035 exchange. So I look at clients, hey, if you got clients that are 70 to age 85, maybe even 87, that have especially non-qualified annuities, low basis, high gains, based on my experience, the clients love tax-deferred growth. But at some point, they want to access the annuity, and they become experts at LIFO, last in, first out taxation, and they say, we're going to take it from somewhere else. I mean, how many times have you heard that conversation, Rod? Or I had a client. Well, what are you going to do with that asset then, right? It becomes almost a lazy or dormant asset in the plan. The fact that we could take that asset, do a 1035 exchange to another annuity, get 3 times leverage, have all of it come out tax-free, including the gains, and even if it's in my name, I could add my spouse to it. Now it becomes a joint policy, which will protect us from a first need care issue. So these annuities are incredible. A lot of them have 6 to 9 questions. It's an open book test for the most part. You got to be paying attention to this, because I'll tell you, clients in their 70s, they're starting to see, other friends and family have different health issues. And they're wishing they would have done this planning 15 years ago, but they didn't. Now they're concerned and they want to have a conversation.
For sure. I would just add it, but it's really going into Steve Walker's chat about what situation would you recommend individual versus joint, the previous question. Part of that has to do with where's the money coming from, because if it's coming from an existing policy somewhere else, you might have 1035 exchange issues. So that would be a reason to use an individual policy perhaps, although the Global Atlantic policy that Shane's indicating, you can actually roll over from an individual and then add a joint rider. So you can actually functionally use cash value from one insured and fund a joint policy with Global Atlantic. So just one little tip for you there.
Well, that's great. Perfect. Those are all the questions you had, Jesse?
Yep.
We can open it up. Does anybody else have any questions? Like I said, put it in the chat line, come off mute, open up your camera. Again, we're friendly, I think.
Ish.
That's fair. All right, what do we give it? 10 seconds? 5 seconds? All right.
Well, I got a question for you.
Oh, you're looking fancy there.
Yeah, thank you. Given how the industry has changed and some of the products that used to be available are not, if you could go back in time and purchase a specific type of product, what would you do?
Oh, Well, I would have bought a 10-pay traditional long-term care policy a long time ago when it was really cheap.
Lifetime
pray
benefits and 5% compounding inflation.
That's exactly what I would do, and then hope I made it out to 10 years without the rate increase. But yeah, that's what I would do.
And do you think, fast forward 5-10 years from now, some of the products that are available today aren't going to be available in the future?
I don't know if I have an opinion on that. I mean, relevant experience says products always kind of change and evolve. So I presume that products today are going to be shut down in some form or fashion.
My concern is what we see in life insurance. From everybody had a no lapse guaranteed UL to a lot of companies then ditching that and going current assumption with a limited life expectancy guarantee. From a pricing standpoint, I could see companies start going that way. I hope they don't, because again, I'm selling predictability in funding a plan, not maybe this could be your value. I want to know exactly what it's going to be in any given year. So I could see that happening. I hope it doesn't. We actually have another insurance company that's coming out launching a traditional long-term care plan currently. So there's some people coming back in there. It's Genworth 2.0 is re-entering the market under Care Scout. So we shall see. Great question though, Brendan.
Get well, the getting's good.
Get well, the getting's good. Wonderful. Well, we went over our time, Rod. I'm going to blame you.
Shock.
It's definitely not my fault, but we'll wrap it up with thank you all for joining us today. Again, this is our last third Thursday of the year. I was unaware of that till I just read this. So, this was it for 2025. But we are excited to announce that our third Thursday at 3 will continue and be even better in 2026. So we plan on to kick off the first event on January 15th of 2026. I know it's not on here, but Rod Crandall, who we have here, he's also going to be the RVP handling all of the brewcasts for next month. So if you liked what you heard today and the style of how Rod communicates, Rod, I know you got quite a good lineup next month, so we'll see you there. So again, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your RVP or call the office, and we're more than happy to help you. So it's my favorite part, since this is the last one of 2025. See you next year.
Take care.
Take care.